Well, we're now coming to the end of the Money Makeover Challenge, and we're going to be having our grand finale on the 23rd of November, where we're going to be announcing the winners of this year's challenge. But for me, ultimately, everybody has been a winner because by simply taking control of their finances, they've managed to change their lives. And I've been reviewing some of the achievements over the last 6 months, and quite frankly, once again, I am so inspired by what all of them have achieved. If, have a look at someone like Johan, who committed to debt review. Now, committing to debt review in the public space, right? Not an easy thing to do, yet he has managed to pay off 100,000 Rand of debt in that time. He and his wife now have a household budget that is in surplus for the first time, and he's increased his retirement savings. Milibakazi has paid off over 15,000 Rands worth of debt over the last 6 months, but she also built up an emergency fund. And this is really important because sadly, Milibakazi experienced a massive tragic development in her family. There were some deaths, and she was able to assist her family members with the funeral costs by using her emergency fund. And this shows us how important an emergency fund is and why we insist on having one as part of Money Makeover, because without that fund, she would have probably had to put all those expenses on her credit card. Instead, she has not used her credit card or any form of credit in the last 6 months. Molefi entered this challenge in a pretty good situation because he had already paid off most of his debts, or actually all of his debts when he entered. But what he needed was to formulate a financial plan for his life. He had so many goals. He wants to get married, he wants to buy a home, and he wants to start his own business one day. So he started a fund for each of these. So he's got a Lobola fund, a wedding fund, a house deposit fund, and his business is his own business fund. And he's on track to achieve all of these, which is actually really, really phenomenal, which includes having enough money to stop working and start his own business in 10 years' time. And he also achieved the goal of his emergency fund now being sufficient or enough to cover 3 months of his living expenses. So this just shows you what's possible when you don't have debt, because instead of money going to pay off debt, Molefi had this money to start investing in his future and achieving all of those amazing goals. Raymond has been focusing on his food business. So he's been working really hard on understanding how to cost his meals correctly, so he knows what he should be charging. And he also completed a business skills course. He's even employed 2 people to help him, one in the kitchen and one as a bookkeeper, because he identified that he would rather be in the kitchen creating and preparing the food than worrying about admin. And I think it's very important for an entrepreneur to identify when to bring somebody in to help you with skills that you may not have, so that you can sort of focus on what you're really good at. Raymond has also separated his business and personal finances. And this is extremely difficult when you have a startup, especially when this is a subsistence startup. This is the business that he has to feed his family. There's always the temptation to take money from the business to meet those household expenses. Cello is our other entrepreneur of this year, and he's been working really hard also on separating his personal and business finances. One of the big challenges for Cello this year was focusing on improving his credit score so that he's in a better position when it comes to taking out a business loan. And he achieved this by paying off many smaller retail loans. This is the kind of debt that really hurts you and your credit score. If you're trying to improve your credit score, hit the store cards, the retail cards. All of those small little debts are often the ones, funny enough, that can hurt your credit score. And he paid off over 20,000 Rand of debt, and he has improved his credit score significantly, and he now actually has an excellent credit score. And finally, Zikhle. I've done this in alphabetical order. So if you're wondering why I've chosen who I've spoken about, just purely alphabetical. Zikhle with a Z comes at the end. And she had to work really hard to reduce her debt on her current budget. So when Zikhle entered the challenge, she wrote, "I would like to find a way to repay my debt and still afford my basic needs." And she has really achieved that because she had the option to apply for debt consolidation. Now, that would have helped her reduce her monthly installments, but it would have lengthened the time it took her to pay off the debt. And Zithli just thought, I don't want to be paying off debt forever. So she's biting the bullet now. She's making the sacrifices now to pay off her debt sooner. And just by finding that little bit of extra money every month, she's managed to pay off over 23,000 Rand of debt in the last 6 months. And in addition to this, she has also managed to increase her retirement contributions to her employer fund from 7% to 10%. So it just goes to show you that it is possible to pay off debt and still save for retirement. I am so proud of all my candidates this year once again, and it just shows for me and for all of you who've been following it what's possible when you put your mind to it.